Perfect. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My pleasure to be here. I am the District Resiliency Officer for South Florida Water Management District. As a brief overall view of our mission and roles, we are one of the largest water management districts in the state. We manage, our mission involves water supply, flood protection, and ecosystem restoration. And my role in the agency is to ensure that we use the latest science, data, analysis, tools, and resources, any available resource to advance resiliency initiatives and prioritize the investments that we need to adapt to the impacts of climate change, rising sea levels, changing rainfall patterns, and everything else that we are observing that might impact our business of managing water resources. With the birthday of Marjorie Stone Douglas yesterday, it's really my pleasure to be focusing today's presentation on how we as an agency are enhancing resiliency in the region with the restoration of our Everglades. Can you please move to the next one? Great. And I started my introduction talking about science and data. And here is a link to our Water and Climate Resilience Metrics Hub. The goal of this initiative is to make data and associated analysis available to the public and partner agencies in South Florida, really trying to understand what are we seeing and what is relevant for us to understand in the region. So we have technical leads working with us from different areas in the district, and we identify 15 metrics that help us to evaluate how change in climate might be influencing our mission elements. So what we have here is a web tool, is a map tool that provides easy access to observe trends. So we are talking about observations, trends that we're seeing that happens in the past 30, 50 years, depending on how long our data goes back, and everything that is monitored by the district. So we have one of the more robust databases in the state, and we manage a lot of relevant data that can help us in this mission of understanding the impacts of changing climate, flooding risks, rainfall, sea level rise. So what we put here in this tool is basically where we have data, so we can zoom into map, you can see initial trends, what do they represent? So we have story maps embedded in this hub that explain the relevance of what we are seeing, what are the analysis, and also providing access, so providing the link to be able to all the users to be able to get to the same results, to get to the same analysis, and have the data available for their assessments. The tool is not fully functional yet. We have all the reports, some static data there, the charts, the analysis, and what we are bringing now is finalizing the connection with our DB Insights tool so that we can have the quick and easy access to the data that originated all of this. But you can find reports, you can find a lot of analysis, and each of those tiles that you can see on the bottom left there, it's the focus that we give to one of those 15 metrics. So you can go to each of those story maps and learn a little bit more on what we are finding through this effort. Next one, please. And I started with data, and I'm going to dig with data a little bit more now, using this conceptual example here, just to introduce you to the relevance of our resiliency needs in the region. I'm going to be talking about increasing storage needs that we have been observing as potentially increasing extreme wet and dry events in our region. So assuming that we have this monthly inflows here in this shaded blue, and I'll ask you to just hit next a few times because it's going to be like an interactive process. So based on this average monthly inflows, we know we have demands for water supply, demands for the environment, demands for our region as a whole that are derived from what we have in terms of available water in the region. Next one, please. And then we know that sometimes the available water is not there when we need them most. So during the dry seasons, many times we do have to count with water that was stored during the wet season. So the way we calculate storage needs is basically we do a simple exercise, hit next please, that is really looking at the deficit between the storage needs during the dry seasons and really calculating the maximum store that we will need to be able to attend all those needs, all this demand along the years throughout the wet and the dry seasons. Next, please. So this is an approach that we get to the maximal sizing of the storage here. Next one, please. And what we see is we have potentially, this is again, is hypothetical as an example. I'm not using any data, but it's just interesting to see that if we have an increase, for instance, of 10% in the wet season and a decrease of 10% in the dry season. So really looking at more extreme wet and dry conditions. That's what we are finding in the literature today. So we have a potential of be dealing with dry seasons and wetter wet seasons. What we see here, one more, is that our reservoir size, the demand for us to store water, it increases. So I think that makes this point very, very relevant, because as we evolve in the future and we confirm those potentially more extreme wet and dry seasons, it's very obvious that we're going to be needing to store more water in the region. Next one, please. And this is exactly what we have with Everglades. I know everybody talks about flows that we move south, restoring water flows, but a big part of that is really storing water, having the water available for when we need, recharging our aquifers. And we have a concept that is part of the discussions and implementation of Everglades restoration that is related to the sources. So new water is the concept that we have. So how are we bringing, I would say, restoring water that was part of the system in the past that needs to be there during certain times for us to manage the system and attend all those demands. So this concept of new water, which is really bringing back the water during those extended period of times when we need them, is what we are really reinforcing here in terms of our capacity to store more water and to deal with this potential more extreme wet and dry seasons in the future. So this is just a summary that we have from one of our documents that talks about sources of new water into 2026, 2032, and through different alternatives of project implementations here. And then what are the recipients? So seeing how this water is being distributed around the region, which of course includes a portion of the Southwest region here in Florida as well. One more, please. And it was interesting because I was reading an article this week that was presenting this novel approach in California that is brought in the state there in California to replenish groundwater to deal with exactly those more extreme dry events in the future that is happening now and that will be exacerbated into the future. The article talks about this as a very novel approach and extremely needed for the region, especially California, that is dealing with very dry seasons more and more. But for me, when I was reading that, all those ideas and all those projects that were being delineated in this article are part of what we call comprehensive Everglades restoration plan. So we are really, really restoring the ecosystem connectivity in the region and really making this water available, replenishing our groundwater, storing water in ways that we are building resiliency. So in Southwest Florida, I like to bring that example here, which is the Picayune strain project. That's definitely our most relevant project that we have in Southwest Florida. We store already over 55,000 acres of native Florida wetlands and uplands in this region. We store pre-drainage watershed flows, patterns, and really bringing this sheet flow condition, which is the goal of this Picayune strain restoration project. We have been increasing significantly groundwater levels in this region, restoring habitat for endangered and threatened species. Panther is our big species there that we like to report, that we have been reporting, in addition to birds and several additional species that we are monitoring and really observing a significant increase in their numbers, improving water quality in general in the coastal estuaries by really moderating the large salinity fluctuations caused by point discharge. So really bringing this sheet flow condition that we can restore the entire region. Next one, please. This project is not fully completed yet. It's going to be expected to be fully completed in August 2025. But just looking at this beautiful picture here, I think sometimes we have images that are really worth more than 1,000 words. And I think that's what exactly this picture is doing here. This was one of the regions where we have this canal that was, the sheet flow was restored, and it's really hard to recognize that this used to be a canal somewhere in the foreground. Again, big achievements already in this region to the restoration effort. One more. So with that, I'd just like to reinforce that point that I was trying to make from the beginning, that Everglades restorations in general are supporting the mitigation against sea level rise and other impacts in our region from climate change. And the goals of our SURF projects are really aligned with adaptation strategies that are needed to build resiliency in South Florida in general, and especially as well in the Southwest Florida region. One more. And with that, I'm going to dig in 3 additional efforts just to talk a little bit more beyond our SURF restoration projects. Beginning with our saltwater interface mapping, we talk about one of the metrics that we have in our hub is saltwater interface. We are monitoring sea level rise impacts in general, and definitely the movement of the saltwater front inland is something that we have been paying a lot of attention. We have been mapping that since 2009. We present those maps to all the regions. I have here listed all the counties that we present those maps every 5 years. We also work in collaboration with the USGS to advance this analysis and really monitor those sea level rise effects as an essential part of the work that we do at the agency. Next one, please. And as a response to those observed conditions where we see saltwater movement inland and really affecting our freshwater sources, I like to bring that example here from our structures that we are updating at the Big Cypress Basin. So what we are doing is we built 8 structures in the past 10 to 15 years. Those are inland structures, but what they do is they help us hold more water back. Again, storing water, keeping the groundwater tables higher, protecting our inland wetlands and the water supply directly influenced by us having higher groundwater tables and protected wetlands, and maintaining the salinity at the bay. That's what we need to do. We need to be able to keep our freshwater heads higher, store water in our aquifers and in the system so we can keep the salinity more at the bay. And those projects also allow us to better management and reduce the wildfire risks during the dry season. So as I mentioned, we built 8 structures so far. The CYP1 is currently under construction. I have a map here showing the increase in water tables for that specific region around the structure on the center of this slide. And on the right is one that was completed, fully completed, CUR1. And just we have been monitoring the region as, for the past years, and in the late dry season, so average March, we have been able to detect an increase in the water table by over 1.5 feet already. So significant benefits from those initiatives here at the Big Cypress west coast of Florida. Next one, please. Yes, and then we're also looking at potential impacts from sea level rise inundation to how we're going to be seeing habitat transitions in the region. So we've done this analysis, the study here to evaluate different scenarios of sea level rise, assuming an accretion rate, so how we can build some resistance, some resilience in the region naturally, like how the system can be responding to that by accretion and really building, increasing our soil elevation to be perhaps adapting to future sea level rise conditions. So what we did in this study is to monitor where and how fast and when and how those habitat transitions might occur and where, and doing some initial assumptions and understanding what would be ideal accretion rates that we would need to have in the region to be able to adapt to those sea level rise scenarios. Next one, please. And with that, we have been proposing a project which is really how can we increase this ability? So can we allow the system naturally to build a little bit more accretion, so accelerate these accretion rates that would give us more resiliency against the sea level rise impacts in some of those regions, and really monitor the health and enhance how those wetlands can be surviving in some of the areas and providing overall benefits for the entire. So this is really building a buffer that can help us against potential inundation of saltwater intrusion inland. So this project is called EMA, Everglades Mangrove Migration Assessment Study. And really the need is for this project is for us to really avoid, like, see how we can stop some of this marsh peat, the collapse of marsh peat soil, and at the same time build resiliency by accelerating soil accretion. The way that we can do that is that we have been testing, and this is a pilot study, is to bring thin layer placement. So we have been working with the Army Corps on this study to see if by bringing some of this thin layer placement, so bringing some sediment to the region, we can accelerate this process. So really building resilience in those mangrove areas for us to really, again, protect the entire regions in upstream areas against this potential impacts from saltwater and sea level rise. Next one, please. And moving now to a discussion about flood risks. What we have is a system that is reaching its capacity. For the entire region here, the way we operate flood protection systems is basically dependent on our canals and coastal structures that allow us to store water and maintain fresh water levels higher inland when needed, and really allow us to discharge and build room for flood protection when needed in the region by discharging the water, draining this water to the ocean as needed. And what's happening is with sea level rise, we are losing capacity to discharge this water. We have a gravity-based system, so we basically open a gate, and with sea level rise, we see a significant reduction in our discharge capacity to drain those basins, and when needed, to drain those basins when we anticipate a major storm or a major rainfall event. And I'm not sure if we're able to play this video. There is just a limited, yeah, good, thank you. This is a video that we recorded 3 years ago. And this is unfortunately saltwater, so ocean levels higher than the top of the gate in this specific structure in South Miami. That is, again, over the capacity. So during high tide events, we are observing this already occurring, which we have zero capacity to discharge in those cases. Not that it happens all the time, but when we have those high tide events and we see the tailwater, the ocean water so high, we have very limited capacity in the way we can operate the system. And if we have an associated rainfall event occurring at the same time, we need to bring additional elements like, for instance, temporary pumps and other things that we can move water and drain water all of those basins. We have a link here. If this PowerPoint is available later, feel free to watch this video. It explains a lot about the connection on all those systems and how our canals and coastal structures operate for us to provide this flood protection and also at the same time protect against saltwater intrusion. One more, please. We are also estimating future rainfall. I think I mentioned rainfall in my entire slides here and how relevant this is to the region. We understand that we have risks of dealing with more extreme wet, so extreme rainfall events in the future. And what we have been doing is looking at available global climate models in the region that could help us understand how this is going to be happening 50 years from now. We partner with the USGS and Florida International University in this more recent effort to really look at all available data sets, downscale to a resolution that we can read some of those projections in our state, in South Florida, and using NOAA Atlas 14 as the data that we are going to be comparing against. So basically what we do is we use those global climate model data sets, downscale, we compare to the observations of NOAA Atlas 14, and we determine what's a changing factor. So the results of this work, which will become public on April 27, we have a workshop that we are putting together, it's changing factors. So how much rainfall, then dealing again with extreme wet, we're in this case focusing on flood impacts. So dealing with extreme wet conditions in the future, how we are anticipating this to happen. And those are going to be helping us to plan better So we're going to be using that for planning, resiliency planning efforts, vulnerability assessment, and we're going to begin adopting those as part of a program that we have in our agency. And you can move to the next slide now, which is our flood protection level of service. What we have been doing is, again, from a flood perspective, we are evaluating where are the most critical areas, the regions that we have that show, I would say, relevant flood vulnerabilities, extreme flood vulnerabilities in those regions that needs to be addressed by improving our infrastructure in the region, hardening the infrastructure. So we do those assessments using advanced modeling tools that can help us to evaluate conditions today, conditions of the future, doing scenarios of future rainfall, sea level rise, storm surge tide, really, and sorry, I didn't mention the groundwater as well. We have been seeing increased groundwater tables in the wet season that also impact how much water we can store. So looking at all those elements combined and understanding more comprehensively the flood risks and the compound flooding risks that we might have in those basins. So this is the tool that we use to really help us prioritize the investments, the infrastructure improvements that we need in the region. Next one, please. And with that, I think I mentioned a little bit of some of those initiatives. And last year, we put together our first resiliency plan document. It is focusing on sea level rise and flood resiliency, as introduced by Dr. Brooks today. That's the State Resilient Florida program, and this plan was put together as a response to the Resilient Florida mostly program. And so we are really happy to share this version of the document that was brought for the first time last year. We are updating with the year 2 now, and our focus on this plan is really on what are the needs, what are the projects that will be helping us to reduce risks in the region, what implementation resources we have available here, given those anticipated future conditions, really focusing on population and critical infrastructure impacted, working with the public, our partners, and really leveraging resources in the region to be able to advance significant projects, and focusing again on our ongoing restoration efforts, reinforcing the need to accelerate the implementation of our overall ecosystem restoration projects, including SERP, Everglades, and then also looking at innovative green and nature-based solutions that are part of the solution here, and that we are really focusing on bringing as part of our priority projects in the plan. Next one, please. And my final message here is related to the importance of understanding how the partners are interacting in the region and how those different solutions will be coexisting in the future. So we have a strong commitment in working in coordination with all those additional agencies. So we have county projects that are being proposed that we have been discussing at the county level, municipal level, how the projects that we are identifying coexist and can be leveraging those county initiatives. We have in local municipalities. We also at the same time work with the Army Corps. We have tech-based studies in our region. We are initiating a flood resiliency study in about 2-3 months this year that will be also focusing on this, how we can coordinate in the region to understand what are the priority investments. We have a significant regional climate compact groups that we are working that are also proposing projects and efforts that we need to coordinate in the region and working in general to really understand how those different pieces will be helping us to build resilience in the region. With that, I thank you, and I will be opening for questions. Thank you.